Hi, my name is Pavel. I'm the CEO at Fluffy. Fluffy is a pet health and insurance.
I'm
What's
not your
wrong?
target. I'm not your target customer. You could call a pet insurance company Fluffy all you like.
No, it's because we don't think it's an insurance company. For me, it's always been, I always see insurance as a safe fallback mechanism. It's, I worked in insurtechs before, and the takeaway there is no one wakes up thinking about insurance. There is no, outside of myself, who runs an insurance business. Have you ever woken up thinking, I wish I had a better insurance? Not really.
No.
What you want to make sure is you're healthy, your family is healthy, and in our case, your pet is healthy. And that's our job, is to make sure your pet is healthy. So that's why majority of, let's say we have tens of thousands of customers who use our digital vet clinic. And we have a couple of thousands of people who use just insurance. And we have another thousands who use both. But the idea is there is, our job is to make sure your pet is healthy. And if we can't help you, you have insurance for that. That's why we always say we're health and insurance.
Okay. You're a pet health business rather than a pet insurance business.
Yeah.
Aha. Still not your ideal customer.
Well, and that's
right.
Look, you should get a dog. That would be,
No, I've got 2 dogs. I have 2 dogs, 3 geese, 3 chickens, 12 cows, and 2 pigs.
Do you have insurance for the cow?
I have no insurance for any of them.
Interesting.
I'm self-insured.
Makes sense.
If the dogs need to go to the vet, we go on Google, because we know the vet will tell us that the dog needs whatever it is. And you get there and they pull on your heartstrings and they make you feel like you're a terrible human being for not doing the £500 treatment. And then when you go to do the £500 treatment, there's a £250. Would you like your dog to also have the drip? I'm like, what do you mean? You put it under anesthetic. Like, does it need a drip or doesn't it? And it's like, well, it's up to you. No, it's not up to me. I'm not the vet. And the vet's just there to try and extract another 250 quid from you. It's like outrageous.
I mean, 500 is actually not that much. We paid for like my dog. My dog's dental recently cost us. I mean, obviously we have insurance, otherwise we would.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But it cost us $3,000
for your dog's teeth. What sort of dog do you have?
12-kilo dog. It's Italian, truffle hunting Italian water dog.
What's the most you've spent on your own teeth ever?
I think if I have more than $1,000 bill in the UK, I would travel somewhere and do teeth elsewhere in another country, which is cheaper.
So I think it's perfect, right? Because you have tapped into a marketplace where people are prepared to spend an absolute fortune. They'll spend more on their animals, they'll spend more on their pets than they will on themselves.
That's definitely the case, but also I believe it's wrong. I believe it's wrong to squeeze money from people, even though. So to give you an idea, when you go to see a vet, you would on average pay £100 just for advice, 75, 50, sometimes 150, just, for them to go and say, oh, don't worry, come back. Make sure your dog is hydrated. Come back in a week if it doesn't get better. With us, you can do it online. You just go online, open the app, get advice, record a video, take a picture. We'll give you the answer. It's free. You don't need to take your dog and travel to another part of the town. You don't need to wait in the line. That's it. Open the app,
it's free.
Send a picture. It's free. If you own insurance, it's free.
You don't need to pay for it.
If you're a customer, it's free. If you need advice on nutrition, training, whatever, it's on us. The point here is we help you with everything at the same cost as you would pay for, even sometimes cheaper than other insurance providers. That's the hook there. It's not that we're slightly cheaper insurance provider. That's a horrible business to build.
What comes to mind is Daniel Kahneman's peak last rule. What he said was, your memories of the world are not a video. It's not a video. You can't rewind your history. What happens is the memories only get laid down if there's an emotion attached to them. And so therefore, when you look back in the past, what you remember are the highs and lows of the past. And so what you've got is you're putting in memories, positive memories of positive interactions with your business in the last 12 months. And then the renewal arrives. Whereas in an insurance business, there's nothing between the renewal and the renewal. And all you do is you look at it and go, God, that's expensive. So, just being able to put those highs in place means that you've got this sort of, people feel positively towards the brand all the time because they're constantly interacting with the business.
That's one way to look. That's one, definitely. And for us, it's, actually, as I said, our goal is to make sure your pet is healthy and you're not stressed about it. Insurance is a mechanism. It's not the solution to everything. On the other hand, it's also good for us as a company because in reality, we can actually help you to take better care of your pet. If your pet is healthier, better for us as an insurance company. We don't lose money on that. So I think it's a win-win.
You weren't always doing this pet health thing. This is a reasonably new thing. So in your mind, take me back to when you started this business. What's the genesis of it? What were the trends? You've worked in other startups before. We'll talk about that in a bit. But, here, who's your ideal customer? What trends are you thinking you're tapping into?
For me, it's kind of the aha moment was very simple. And actually the entire business was built for my wife. That was the entirety of the bit. You might laugh, but actually that's absolutely true story. So we got our dog, Italian water dog, a majestic dog, beautiful dog. And I always had dogs in the past as a kid, then on my own. And my wife never had a dog, never had a cat, never had hamster, never ever interacted with any pets. So clearly it was my decision to get a dog. And literally next in 2 days after we get the dog, I'm in the office and my wife calls me up from a vet clinic. And she said, I was worried about the dog. I had to go to a vet. And I said, but that's fine. Why did you go? She said, I don't know what I'm doing. So I decided to play safe. So she paid £200-300 for checking, which was absolutely unnecessary. And it was sort of an aha moment for us where we said, look, the problem is not just that, insurance or, something wrong with pets or people. The problem is the new generation of pet owners, they get pets before they get kids, so they don't know what they're doing. And they actually need 2-3 times more support than the previous generation. And our goal is to make sure we can provide the support. So we basically went through the entire journey of my wife having this dog, and we built a product around that. First was training, like the dog was destroying the house. How do we help people to train the dog? So we would build the prototype. My wife would say, it's shit, it's bad. We fixed it. We obviously brought some friends who had dogs as well, cats, built around that. And then, the dog got older, so training became less relevant, but there were other cases. We built a whole system around that of, us helping you to go from zero to hero when it comes to your pet. And at some point, it came to the place of, but still sometimes you need to go and see a vet. Would it be cool if it could be cheaper? And I turned around and said, imagine if I could actually give it for free. She's like, how is it possible? Like, only if you pay £20 a month, it will be free. She's like, it sounds like a great deal. I spent like £200 for one visit. And we said, well, we'll call it insurance, but we will be very quiet about that. So that's kind of a fallback mechanism.
That's nice. So it's sort of subscription, pet ownership, advice, training, including trip to the vet. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Talk to a vet online. If one of the most popular features we have, if you have a problem, just take out your phone, talk to one of our vets. They'll get you, tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. You can check in back, tell what's going on, send a picture, send a video, and we'll help you out. And majority of cases, when you go to a vet, we actually don't need to go to a vet. Not majority, but at least 30%.
Yes. When I was saying at the beginning about my experience with our vet, I was thinking about our local small animal vet rather than our farm vet. The farm vet is fantastic. If we think one of the cows might be dying, we ring the vet and the vet will be, it probably isn't dying. I probably don't need to see you. Could you go and do this, this, and this? And maybe we talk again in the morning. Oh, look, it's better again. It is very, very reassuring to have somebody that you can speak to who knows what they're talking about. Yeah, no, that's fab. So how do you staff your back end? You have to staff that with vets?
Yeah, so we, the way how we did, and we were very lucky that AI became a big thing last year, We actually do initial triage using AI, so we can basically direct to the right place. If there is something that is urgent, we can say straight away that go and see a vet. There's, the dog is, got hit by a car who is bleeding. We say go and see a vet. That's pretty straightforward. And then we connect with vets who are looking. There are a lot of vets who, especially sometimes vet nurses, who for various reasons looking for a part-time job, or let's say they're on maternity leave and looking for some, extra work. So there are a lot of people in the vet space looking for part-time jobs, and that's what we can provide. So it's a win-win.
And do you have this market to yourselves? Are you the only people who've come up with the positioning that this is a pet health subscription?
There are a couple of companies who use third-party providers to, let's say, do like vet helplines. We are, I think, to my best knowledge, at least in the UK, at least to my knowledge, we're the only company who has end-to-end pet care support fully in-house. There are two reasons, especially when, both for consumers and for insurance companies. If you use, let's say, for vet helpline, you use a third-party provider, they incentivize to pick up the phone because they're being paid by insurance company to do that. And to minimize the risk, they will still send you to a vet. So you go to a vet anyways. So you pay twice, the insurance company pays. So it's lose-lose. Our vets are incentivized to make sure we help you out, because this is our money on the line, regardless, either through an online vet or physical vet. So we have vested interest to make sure conditions are treated as quickly as possible and pets get the best care.
And you're a vested interest in making sure that the online information that you provide minimizes the requirement to speak to somebody as well. It's all part of the same journey.
That's true as well. For us, the whole idea is, like I would say more altruistic approach to the business is like having pets is amazing. I mean, the fact that you have 2 dogs, 3 geese, 3 chicken, and 2 cows, if I remember correctly.
And 2 small children.
And 2 small children, yeah. I mean, I can't say too much about that, but if we just, keep it on 3 chicken for now. But, having pets is an amazing feeling. It's really great. I mean, but there are a lot of stressful bits that come around, and our goal is to remove that. We believe it's an amazing experience. Enjoy it. We'll take care of the rest.
I think it's interesting, though, that we were talking before we were recording, and you were saying, this is a new segment of the market. This is people who are having pets before children. In the case of your wife, people who've never had pets before. Was that driven by lockdown and the spike in pet ownership during COVID, do you think? Or was it an emerging trend already?
I think COVID, not just in our industry, but in many other industries, made it very difficult to understand the trends. Remote work being a great example. Remote work was a trend before. During COVID, it actually boomed and became huge. Then it came down. So it's really hard for you to see what was actual trend was there, what was the impact of pandemic. If you look at the market, especially for pets and pet insurance specifically, many companies saw that there will be a lot of new pet owners, and they kind of thought, okay, more owners, more money. And that turned out not to be true necessarily, because as I mentioned, yes, these new owners, they get pets before they get children. So actually, if you had 2 kids and then a dog, you really know what you're doing. Stomach problems. Well, but that's true. Stomach problems.
Well, I think the thing is that once you've had 2 children, like you realize with the second one that they're not going to die when they're asleep, and if you drop them, they bounce. The second child is so much easier than the first one. And a dog, I mean, my God, the dog is like so easy compared to the children.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm second child in the family, and my dad always was like, yeah, he's not going to, like, we tried everything with the first child. This one not going to die in any way or shape or form. So for us, the whole idea was that, yeah, we knew that the new generation, they have no experience of having responsibility over any living creature before. So we knew that the amount of stress, of uncertainty will be 2-3 times higher, which means in insurance terms, you will claim more. So what happened to big insurance companies? You got more customers, but you started to lose money much, much faster. And that's what we said, that the problem is not insurance. The problem is these people need support. And our goal is to provide this support. That's why for me, it's always hard to say the insurance company. We didn't start as an insurance company, and we don't really believe that insurance is the solution to the problem.
Yes, which is why you got so upset when I said you were an insurance company.
I don't think anyone, it's kind of the least sexy way to describe. Like you can take anything in the world and you put an insurance label onto that. And by default, I mean, I love insurance. It's a beautiful mathematical industry.
Call it insurance. It just sucks all the joy straight out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't think, yeah, exactly.
So before you were doing this, you were a sort of hired gun. Is that the right word? This sort of revenue acceleration specialist for startups?
So my job specifically job title would be head of growth, which means nothing in early stage startups. It means pretty much you do everything you need or that has to be done, sometimes from product to sales to marketing. And we figure out how the company can get to product market fit as soon as possible and how you can get actual traction as quickly as possible.
Okay. And then stay on, or at that point, go and find another one to help get to product market fit?
So usually my sweet spot would be pre-seed or pre-seed to Series A or Series B. Afterwards, it becomes, I was under 30 when I was doing this. It becomes quite boring if it's after Series B. You don't have much of a hands-on work. You spend most of the time meeting different teams. You spend all the day in meetings. Never liked it. And you're just sitting there thinking, okay, the company is growing really well, but what am I doing here?
I love that. You've got a sense of clarity around where you enjoy work and where you have an impact that often people just don't have.
Yeah, it's like, if you run a marathon and then when you finish, you take a bus back home, the ride back home is not the most interesting part of the day. It's the running the marathon. So I think pre-seed to Series A or Series B that's the marathon. And then the ride back home on the bus is probably things onwards. Something bad can happen. The bus can overturn and you can all die. That happens. And there is also insurance for that. But otherwise, it's not as interesting.
And B2B, B2C, tech?
A lot of only tech, mostly B2B, some B2C as well. But B2B was all, UK is a B2B driven SaaS tech ecosystem.
It's interesting because I heard a really interesting observation about that, which was that really the UK and Europe should stick with B2B, because if you're going to do B2C, because the US is such a large single market, that you are mad to try to do B2C in Europe because every country is different. Whereas you do B2C in the US and you can get to such a huge scale without having to worry about currency and language and anything, geography. But in B2B, your market is always going to be smaller, and you can build a sizable B2B business in Europe and then go to the US. It was just interesting. So, I just thought it was an interesting take on why Europe has ended up being good at B2B relative to B2C SaaS businesses.
I think that's one of the reasons. I think the other reason is also investor landscape. I think B2B SaaS businesses are much, not easy, but easier to predict based on early data, the success, rather than B2C. If we take away the virality, social element of the B2C business, which is very unique, and there are, few startups in the world, few people know how to do that. If you take B2C, traditional B2C businesses, the problem there is every day you start anew. Every week you start anew. There is, B2B SaaS is a recurring revenue. B2C, it's a very capital intensive business and much more unpredictable.
When you look at other people doing it badly, what do you think to yourself, the top things where you go, they're just making a real mess of that. They're making that look really difficult and it doesn't need to be that hard. When you're thinking that, what are you seeing?
So overall, I think my journey was, first when I joined the first startup, I read, I think Paul Graham, who said, okay, the only thing you need to do is to build things people want. I was like, that's such a shitty advice. That's obvious. It's like, yeah,
Oh
like,
no, I've seen dev teams toil away in the dark room and generate things that nobody gives a shit about.
exactly. And so then I went through like, started learning how, you do different hacks, optimize sales team. And then, how can you squeeze more from the sales team? How can you improve the product? How can you increase conversions? And now going through the entire cycle, building my own business, I came back to its simple realization: build shit people want. There is no, like, you can hack things through, you can hack things away, you can find ways to grow, you can buy traffic, you can do many, many things. Realistically, what builds a successful, stable business is build shit people want. And I think for me, it was what I always often see people try to find hacks. If you remember, there was like a big boom in like growth hacking. That was like a big buzzword a few years ago. And it makes sense in a given example. So, you can optimize things here and there. But overall, initially, you need to build shit people want. And a lot of companies, if you like hiring, and even though, I was head of growth in early stage companies, I think if you need to hire head of growth at the pre-seed level, you're doing something wrong. You as a founder should figure out what's the product market fit. You need to figure out, you can't outsource it. And there is a lot of founders, how it usually happens and what I've seen. Founders came up with an idea that sounds just plausible enough to raise money, which they did next, is to raise money. They raise money and they sit in a room and they realize we don't have any traffic, we don't have revenue. And investors, calling them saying, guys, what's going on? Where's the hockey stick? So I said, okay, we built something great. We built something amazing. Everyone should love it. Probably we just need to hack it and people will come. So they go find a head of growth who joins the team and they go, okay, so we read a blog post about growth hacking. So can you actually hike the conversion rates from 0 to 10%? And then we are golden. And sometimes you can do it. So now you can hack something together. You can, improve that and improve this. Sometimes indeed it can be messaging. You had a previous podcast with April, I think just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
About positioning. Indeed, sometimes positioning is the key. Sometimes you go to a website and you have no idea what they're doing. You actually have to spend like 30 minutes until you find like a video on one of the blog posts that explains concisely. My usually go-to is to open the Twitter account and usually Twitter bio. They were forced to write a short description of what they do. And that's how you understand what they do. But usually it's like technical term followed by very ambitious generic brand messaging. And you have no idea what it is. And so that's it fixes. But overall, usually it's a product that no one needs. And this kind of growth have to try to force this product down someone's throat, like heavily. And that's what I see in a lot of startups. That's like a 101.
The way I think about it, I think you're right. It's if we're trying to sell it, if we've got a widget that we're trying to sell, as opposed to a need that people have, and we can assist them to buy our solution to their problem. It's just a very different way. Because quite often I'll talk to businesses that are not growing as fast as they like. And they say, our problem is that our sales team just aren't selling enough. And it turns out they're trying to sell something that nobody wants. It's just hard.
Indeed, and working with sales team at different sizes from few people to, tens of people and, near to 50 people. Indeed, sometimes sales teams are inefficient. There are examples of sales teams not being trained properly, not being, bad players not being fired quick enough. There are examples of that hiring being poorly done. You have a team of C players instead of A players. But often, indeed, that's the case of, people, sales team are forced to sell that, without understanding what the problem they're solving with their product. And I always say that for me, the good example, the best example, if you come to a founder and you say, okay, what problem you are solving? And they should be able, in a very concise way, explain the problem they're solving. And always give like 10 extra points to Gryffindor if they can actually put a number on the problem. The best startups, if you look at them, they will be able to tell you, look, we build payment processing. Everyone charges 3%. We charge 1%. That's a very clear, we do it 3 times cheaper. Why someone would switch to us? We are 3 times cheaper. Cheaper is what we are 3 times faster. Everyone takes 2 weeks to send the payment. We take, we take 4 days. It becomes a very clear problem. And it's a very clear what your product is solving. It solves moving money fast, moving money cheap. It does not solve a hypothetical scenario.
And actually, when you were describing your business, you said we remove the stress from pet ownership.
For us, we usually put numbers on vet bills. So for us, the key is how much you can save. And, ideally we always say at least we want to cut the vet bills or vet spending in half. That would be a dream for us. Whenever we build something, we always put a number on that. We don't want to say that our claims will be better. We know the average time to pay out the claim. We want to be 3 times faster. That's for us a very number-driven game. And whenever I hear myself saying something, obviously there are brand messages, and that's good. But when internally I hear myself saying it needs to be more convenient, and convenience is a big thing, don't get me wrong, but convenience in what then? Like, be precise about what you're solving. And majority of startups where I see they fail, if you look at the most successful startups, it's very clear what they were doing. Airbnb sounds like a horrible startup idea. Don't get me wrong. And that's why no one wanted to invest in it. If you look at the early investors, everyone passed from them because people, you will be living in someone's house when you travel or you want someone. You basically imagine I was jumping on a call and saying, by the way, Dominic, tomorrow I'm going to stay in your extra bedroom. That sounds like a really weird conversation to have from a person you never met before. Or you're basically saying, yeah, you have a place in London. Would you mind just, I'll come over, pay you some money, I will stay there. I'll say, no. Well, why would you? But what they were doing was very clear. Hotels cost X amount of money, will be cheaper. That's a very reason. Like now Airbnb became more of a brand and, experience. But it's very clear what they're doing. It's cheaper.
Well, and also as that evolved, looking at how their messaging evolved, they then said, okay, well, why would somebody, and what they did is they looked at where they were being successful and where they weren't. And they went, okay, where do we win and where do we lose? So we're cheaper than a hotel, but we don't always win. What is it of the people who are staying in an Airbnb? How do they feel when they stay with us and not a hotel? And they don't feel like a tourist. They feel like a local. And so then it's like, okay, right. So now we're getting into how do we want people to feel when they buy? And then that makes it much easier for us to be able to reach that person in a way with the messaging and the imaging. So you're the type of person who doesn't want to be a tourist because you think there's a negative connotation to tourism.
But what I noticed that those conversations are usually helpful when you're like Series B plus, because early on you need to survive.
You're already making some money.
Yeah, because for you to basically for you even to be able to step back and think about this. Usually, you're on a short runway, you're about to go out of business. Something's going like someone left and your key engineer left. Like you don't have time to think about big things. But if you can solve one problem well, like we're cheaper than hotels, people will stay with us. That's a big enough business to build a unicorn. Then we expand into experiences, we expand something bigger. But for me, the mistake of early stage startups is trying to either not ignore everything and go with the idea without having any reality checks, or trying to think big picture before they actually solved one small problem. Because it's very easy to talk about something that is intangible.
Uh-huh. And that's sort of better, more convenient. You've got to put some numbers to it. Otherwise you can't make it concrete.
I mean, it can be look, some things are really inconvenient. There are, if you have a pen and paper process for something and you say it's going to be digital, that's a clear proposition. But sometimes it's convenience used as a word to basically brush it off. Oh, we're better. At what? Oh, it's nicer. It's cooler. What does it actually mean?
Okay. How big can you be? Are you going to be a unicorn, do you reckon? Is the market large enough? Does everything you do translate into other geographies?
It's a good question, by the way. I think unicorns are measured on valuations.
I was only trying to get a sense of your aspiration for how big you think this could be.
Let me put it like that. I would rather be a unicorn on revenue rather than the unicorn on valuation. And I think that's the ambition for the business, to create actually sustainable business. There are a lot of examples of businesses, especially now, that prove to be that valuations mean very little. If anything, it harms business. In short, speaking about other countries, yes, we're looking to several countries, but insurtechs generally, due to regulatory requirements, are harder to internationalize. We need to get licenses. EU is actually better in that regard. So EU is more of a homogeneous area than the US. Every state in the US has different legislation. So you need to file with different, it's actually a nightmare. That's why there is only one consumer insurtech and fintech managed to expand into the US. Only one. All of them, all others miserably died there.
Huh. That's fascinating. It's just that difference in geography.
So basically, for me to move insurance from France to Spain, just regular, not talking about culture or not talking about not talking about, currency is the same, not talking about language, but regulatory wise, it's easier from France to Spain than from Texas to California.
Huh.
And US has a lot of restrictions on financial companies.
Every time I go to the US, it feels like going back to 1985. You know, you get your phone out and they say, "Oh no, you need your credit card and you need to sign a thing." I'm like, I need a pen and a piece of plastic. I'm like, most of the time I don't even leave the house with my wallet.
It's partly because of the state by state, and it's also partly because of legacy infrastructure, because the US were champions of payment infrastructure. Any innovation takes a lot of time. To give you an idea, we were in Germany a few months ago and we went for breakfast with our friends there. And the local friends said, "Oh, let's find an ATM." Like, why would you look for ATM for breakfast? Can you just go and have food? They go, no, they only accept cash. I say, well, what do you mean they only accept cash? And they say, oh, like in Berlin, a lot of places only accept cash. And next day we were flying to my wife's home country called Kazakhstan, which is, famous for Borat. But outside of that, it's a beautiful country. To give you an idea, next day we were walking on the riverbank in Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, wanted to buy an ice cream. First of all, when I got an ice cream, they said, just take this QR code and the money will just appear on the bank account. Like, basically, you can transfer and pay everywhere with a QR code. That's one. Two, the guy overcharged us. He then turned around and said, "Can I ask for your number?" And I said, "Why?" He was like, "Well, if you give me if you have like local phone number," my wife gave no phone number. He basically transferred this extra 20p onto her bank account within seconds. Imagine like a guy selling ice cream. It's not a shop even. It was like it's basically the kiosk on the riverbank in Kazakhstan. Payment in QR code, money back if they overcharge you in seconds via phone number. It's like magic. And if you go to any restaurant in Kazakhstan, any restaurant, even in remote villages, you'll be able to either pay with a card or transfer by bank account by QR code.
Fantastic. How did you end up marrying a lady from Kazakhstan?
She studied in London, and
okay.
we both studied in London. So there was not me trying to travel around the world and find a wife. There's no interesting story of me being a nomad and traveling around Central Asia trying to find a wife. There's no story like that. It happened that she was from Kazakhstan. That was not like my target area.
And Pavel, what is it you know now you wish you'd known earlier?
I think it goes back to what I just said. Is not about Kazakhstan, but it was about build shit people want. It's such an obvious thing, and it takes you years of sweat and tears to get to the same conclusion you started from the beginning. But then you look at it from a different perspective. You actually, the only thing you need to do, because when it sounds like, oh, build what people want, you go like, oh, but there's so many other things. No, there are not. If you build what people want, everything else will become so much easier. Indeed, you can hack it with sales. Indeed, you can hack it with marketing. Indeed, you can bullshit your way through and fake it until you make it. But the easiest way is to have two people. You don't need big teams then. Spend extra 6 months of testing, of iterating, but build something what people want. And then everything else becomes 3 times easier. It sounds like, again, as a worst advice, but you go from, this up to, oh, I know all the hacks of the business and I know how to, find a way to make more money. Going back to, just build one thing people want.
Fantastic. And what should people read? What are your recommendations things that have been useful on your journey?
Yeah, I think the year before I had the target to read all Paul Graham's essays. And it turns out there are more essays than you think. Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator. He has his own blog, and I think there are over 100 essays. Some are long, some are short, but honestly, as a startup founder, I can't think of any book that would be better than reading those essays. It covers everything you need. And it also gives you a very interesting historic context. So I think he started writing in 2004. And so you can read essays from 2004, but he looks at like Google, even earlier, like early 2000, he looks at Google and says, yeah, I think these guys look very promising. Or like, he will talk about companies that actually went bust afterwards. And I think one of them, like you can read about Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, the most influential person. When you read about him like 10, 15 years ago, and you read about him like as a kid, pretty much going to Y Combinator, and you read about him, and actually imagine 15 years ago in his first essays, Paul Graham compares Sam Altman to Bill Gates. He literally said, oh, now I know how Bill Gates looked and felt like when he was 19. And that's quite, but two other recently really good books I now recommend to everyone. One is The History of IBM, and which is called The Maverick and His Machine. It's a really good book. And it's interesting to read it at the same time with the book about Thomas Edison called The Wizard of Menlo Park. And what's interesting about that is when you read about IBM, they have the same problems we had. It's interesting when you read about first IBM machines. They say, it reminds me of the AI conversation now. They say, oh, this first machine, which did pretty much just, simple calculations, is like electric brain. It's going to kill all jobs. We're going to be unemployed. And we're talking about like 1930s. Imagine like it was nearly 100 years ago, people were like, oh yeah, like we are all doomed. Like there is a machine that can do calculations. We are all out of job. It's fascinating. And they talk about culture, like how we should be paying people. Should we be doing this? How do we hire? Diversity. They talk about diversity hires, which is very fascinating. Like a lot of the conversation, work-life balance. What's the role of employer in the life of employees? And it's fascinating. The history of IBM is interesting, but it's so interesting to see that they had the same. And if you go to Thomas Edison, he had the same business. He had to build a business empire. Turns out he didn't know about this, and apologies for spoilers. He had his own music label.
Uh-huh.
One of the first music labels in human history were actually of Thomas Edison. The same conversation happened nearly 150 years ago. And now when he looks at some artists and says, oh, it doesn't sound like music. All this, all this, and he goes like say, the true music can be only orchestra. If it's not orchestra, it's not music. It's just some weird noises. And then you see, all these things. And if you start with Thomas Edison and then you read about IBM, you get this kind of evolution of how people thought about business.
Of technology.
It's
business and technology. Yeah.
And there is a book about Henry Ford. And if you read all of them together, it feels like nothing changed. We're seeing humans. We have the same problems. We have the same conversations.
What's the Henry Ford book?
I invented the modern age. But also all of them knew each other. So it's very interesting that they all knew each other. Thomas Edison knew Henry Ford, and Henry Ford had impact on IBM as well. So they're all connected in a very interesting way. So it feels like, it's like you're reading about diaries of good friends at the same time.
Pavel, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. That's fantastic. Good luck with the business.
Thank you so much.
Pet healthcare. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.